at the annual meeting of the New Champions 2019. We have a very special press conference lined up tonight. Last year, this was actually the most viewed press conference on YouTube. So no pressure. No pressure. Yeah, we give a little applause for that.
Thank you, Amanda.
So we have a great panel here tonight. I'm joined by Xiang, the founder of the China Money Network. I'm also joined by Chen Kuan, the founder of Infervision. And finally, Xiao's Jing, the chief scientist of Ping An Group. So we have a very interesting report here about the next 10 years for AI. So I'm going to start off with Nina. Nina, can you give us a bit of background about what this report is and highlight some of the key content?
Sure. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everyone, for coming, for attending this press conference. I'm a little concerned or conflicted of whether I should do this in Chinese or English. I know some of the audience have told us they would prefer Chinese, but I've also seen others who might not speak Chinese or understand Chinese. But do we have a?
Yeah, everyone has translations.
So if it's okay, I would like to proceed in Chinese.
Yeah, sure.
If you can get simultaneous translation equipment. Okay.
好的。
Thank you.
Everyone would have got the paper already. If you don't have, our staff will help you with one. We printed the report, but on the second page, you can scan the QR code. You will see the report itself. It is bilingual with Chinese and English. Let me briefly talk about this report and the background. In the audience, you may remember in last year, we launched the top 50 AI players in China. And last year, we had a detailed survey, and we made a list of the top 50 AI companies. And that was a very good review last year. It was in last September. It was about 10 months ago. And that was at the peak of the AI industry in China. You could see those companies, and those were financed with hundreds of millions of RMB or US dollars. So the investment has been booming in this industry. AI players in China within 1 year doubled or tripled their staff members. Investors paid a lot more attention to this industry, and they are really optimistic, and they are very confident. By 2019, you could see that the sentiment is changing. From the venture capitalists' perspective, you could see in the first half of 2019, the AI market, if you look at the different segments, you could see in the first half of 2019, there were 131 transactions or deals. It's 5.6 billion US dollars, compared with the whole year of 2018. There were 496 deals. The total was 15.7 billion US dollars. From there, you can see now the investors are getting more and more rational and cautious, and the valuation of those startups is more reasonable. If you look at 2018, if you look at the projects about 100 million US dollars, there were 26 deals. But in 2018, it was more than 40. So you could see there is a decline in 2019. In some specific segments of AI, you could see there have been a relook of this industry, and they have adjusted their expectations for AI. So under that backdrop, we better have a prospective study from the prospective experts so that we can provide more insights. We've invited 10 experts in AI. They have shown us their own outlook for the future 10 years. Some of them are from autonomous driving, some are from chips, then great health industry, and AI, fintech, etc. Through this outlook, for the next 10 years, we see something common. Number one, all these experts have rosy pictures for the long-term outlook, and they are very confident. For the near term, you could see some ups or downs or down-regulating, but in the long term, they are very confident. Number one. Number two, a lot more experts tell us that we've seen tip of the iceberg of the applications. You're just scratching the surface. And this is really an early stage for the application of AI. Some say this is quite obvious, but not really so. Some other experts say no, not really. They say we're at a later stage. Point number three, some experts said in the future there will be 2 different or 3 different AI ecosystems or N ecosystems. That's because we have trade issues, geopolitical issues, etc., that will have external implications for AI ecology. There are details in the report. Feel free to refer to them.
You, Amanda. Thank you.
It's fine. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think now would be a good time then to turn to Chen Kuan. Can you tell us a little bit more about healthcare and AI, and let's dive into that specific sector a bit.
Yeah, so basically I'm actually the founder and CEO of Infervision, which actually focuses on applying deep learning technology in the field of healthcare. So we see that actually throughout the globe, in fact, the shortage of good doctors, the shortage of good physicians is actually a global phenomenon. We see that in China, for example, we see that great doctors are basically in the big hospitals of the big cities. And we see that actually in the US, in which the cost of doctors are actually very expensive. So the service is, in fact, very expensive. And we see that in a lot of rural and developing countries in which the entire country, we might only have a few hundred well-trained radiologists looking at images. So we actually see that it's actually a global phenomenon in which we have a shortage of good doctors. And that's, in fact, why artificial intelligence can play such a huge part in this industry. Because like with deep learning, we can actually kind of precipitate the best physician skills from the best doctors and the best hospitals, so that we can actually apply them across the board, across the globe, so that we can actually provide the best types of medical services with reasonable cost to a massive amount of patients in demand. So I think that's basically why in fact, AI can develop so quickly in healthcare for the past few years. So in fact, healthcare is actually a very conservative and normally we consider it to be very slow industry. But for the past 3 years, we actually see that there's a widespread adoption of AI technology in different fields, in different countries. And the heat of the debate and also the amount of research being channeled into artificial intelligence is huge. So I think we're actually looking at a very exciting field in which we will see development for a really long time. Although it's actually a conservative field in which we have to do meticulous research, we have to do very precise research to develop the value of AI. But at the same time, we also see that the heat is actually propelling the industry forward, so that we actually see this very interesting kind of interaction between a traditional industry as well as the new technology as AI.
And, are there any countries that are really taking a forward-looking approach to this and trying to tackle this issue early?
Yes. I mean, right now, in fact, for us in Infervision alone, we are actually in 8 different countries. So we see that, in fact, I think different countries are also looking into the potential of AI in healthcare sector, because I think healthcare sector is an important sector in any countries in our world. So we think that all the nations right now actually realize the importance of AI technology and as well as the potential. But at the same time, in some of the countries, we actually see a huge leap. For example, in China, in which the shortage of physicians is huge. But at the same time, the ground to develop and to research artificial intelligence is so ripe. We have so much data that's around. We have so much patience. We have so much areas in which we can apply this technology. And we have so many problems to solve here. So that's why we see that the AI technology develops so quickly in China. But at the same time, also, for example, in US, also in Europe, we see that the cost of the medical industry is so high. And at the same time, the demand is huge. And also the taste for technology is also pretty high. So we actually see that all these countries are all trying to leapfrog this particular technology, and we're actually very excited to see future developments.
Thank you. And so I'd like to turn now to Xiao Jing. As the chief scientist, you have a unique perspective to bring to this. So can you kind of tell us a little bit more about the prediction and outlook for China and for AI?
Yeah. So I have just look at the experts in this report. I have kind of different positions, even though similar technology background, but different positions from these experts. Because I have been working in traditional business and trying to apply AI technologies for a long time. I'm a practitioner in this area. And I usually don't like to call AI an industry, because I think it cannot survive by itself. It's a powerful tool, powerful technology that can reshape and burst the various business, various industries. But it's not easy. It's not easy to apply AI technology to help the other industry. We all know that AI has a long history, right? Over 60 years, 63 years is a long history. But only very recently, in internet era, it started to really help commercial industry, commercial business. And very recently, it also get into the other more traditional area, more traditional business like medical, healthcare, and also finance, essential manufacture. In order to really make AI technology helpful or useful, it takes a lot of effort. And first, you need to tackle a real-world problem, right? You really need use a real-world business problem as your target, like what Mr. Chen just described, the shortage of good doctors. That's a real-world problem, right? You need to solve it, and together with these business people. And the second, you need to have some necessary conditions satisfied. Like you need to have first your organization or your company should have an IT system, like information system. Then you need to have a digital data platform. And then you'll be able to apply AI technology to analyze the data and run some algorithm and build the solutions. And more importantly, you need to have the business team working together with the technical team. And the two sides work together to make the solutions. We think, right, in Ping An, we are traditional business, but now we are been trying to make our company more smarter, more intelligent. And we think in terms of the value, right, because if you want the AI to survive, right, you need to create value, real value, solve the real problem and create real value. We think in terms of value, the AI technology development pass through three stages. The first stage, you develop the fundamental technologies, like the vision technology, speech technology, the NLP technology, etc., like the fundamental technologies. But this, just like a human, when you are a baby, you develop all these fundamental sensing skills, capabilities, but it doesn't create any real value, right? It's just fundamental techniques. And then, as a human, when you get to school, you get to learn a lot of, you get to touch a lot of big data, right? You learn from books, you talk to people, you watch TV, you have absorbed a lot of data, and then you build your knowledge graph, right? Your knowledge system, learning system. And that also did not create real value. It's still a capability. So that's the second stage, we think. So when we build AI capabilities, we pass through these two stages without creating value. And the third stage, we will combine or infuse these AI technology, fundamental technologies, and also this knowledge graph and the learning systems together with our business concept, and then we build business solutions. Then it start to create real value. So I think China's AI industry last year, as
Nina.
Nina,
Yes, Nina.
as Nina just mentioned, last year we had not only last year, the past several years, we had a lot of investment, but I think mainly on the first two stages. We invest a lot of money to build the fundamental technologies, build these knowledge graph kind of technologies, and also even the second stage, knowledge graph, is not very few. Most of the investment is on the first stage, I think. And then I think the next stage will be more important in the next few years. I think more investment will get into the third stage, build really real solutions to solve the real world problems, create real values. I think Ms. Chen's company is doing something like that, right? You actually solve the real problem and build the real solutions. That's not a pure technology, right? You're not only to showcase your capability of your technology, you build solutions that can directly be used by the doctors or by the hospitals or some related organizations. Right? I think that will be the next stage of the AI development. Also, will be the main focus of the investment in the next few years.
Great, thank you for that. So we have a lot of people in the audience. I know the issue of AI is a hot topic throughout this event. So let's open it up for questions. I have a couple floating around, but I've already asked one. So who would like to ask the first question? Oh, hold on, wait for the microphone.
Thank you. Maybe in Chinese?
Sure, please.
Chinese and English. Okay.
We can have a translator.
那么陈冠老师
Just now, Mr. Chen Kuan mentioned Infervision is AI plus healthcare. If we look at 3 to 5 years into the future, personally, do you think AI would be applied what other 3 areas other than healthcare?
我觉得其实人工智能在很多行业，
I would say AI would have implementations in many different areas, and I do agree with you that next step is not just in how good I am with the technologies, but how can we apply these technologies in the real world? How can we go deeper to create value in the business sectors? On top of that, I would say there are certain areas with huge demand but with limited productivity. In that case, we would have more application. But I always believe healthcare is a huge area with potential application. I know Ping An Group did a lot of work in that arena, so I would say healthcare would see great development. Also, we talk a lot about autonomous driving. I would say autonomous driving would have its application in certain segments in the next 3 to 5 years. We can use all of those in our daily life. Me, myself, also find agriculture is another area with huge demand, with huge data volume, and they need to be more intelligent. And today, many companies are already working on something like face recognition. That is something else, I would say, with great potential. So there are many great opportunities with potential values founded by the AI. I'd also say AI would somewhat cool down from the overpopular state now. It would become a daily technology. People would use that very frequently, such as the other infrastructures. That is something we would see in the future. Can I say something else here? Maybe I can give you another case where AI have least potential in certain industries. What we call the fourth demand, what we call the service robot is one of the case. In the short or middle term, I wouldn't say any robot who would be truly serving people that would meet people's need. the kind of robot you can use at home to provide service to you. You may see some of them in, shopping malls, in government authorities. I would say that is an area with immature technology and would not become mature in short term. Autonomous driving, you need to recalibrate your expectation. What do you expect as the autonomous driving future need to be replanned. You need to reflect. I'm trying to find out proper word for that. Well, let me put it this way. You need to be more realistic and practical in its implementation instead of imagining it something like, science fictions. Someone sitting in the car, you ignore where the car is driving, you can watch a movie or something else. There are other arenas, but you need to tell which areas are potential great need, which areas are having what we call fake need. There are some immature technologies in application like facial recognition. So when we look at these companies, their client is continuously trying to find out where is margin, where technology is mature enough for business value. I would say in the next 3 to 5 years, we will see a clearer margin. And I also want to say AI will be used in more scenarios. There will no general purpose AI. That's too far away. If we need to put AI in different scenarios, you need to combine that with different business sectors scenarios. AI is good for technology, solving computational problems, including AlphaGo. In the 1913, a German mathematician has already proven that theoretically robots would win human being for computing. But with AlphaGo, they use a new algorithm of machine learning. That's just technical issue. AI are doing good in technologies, but if you want to apply it to different scenarios, I would say in the next 5 years, AI would be more, practical. As Dr. Chen mentioned, they would go to specific use case. We need to put it in the areas improving the efficiency and user experience and reduce the cost. That is the business issues. If we can transfer the business questions into technical equations, AI can solve all your challenge in any business scenarios. AI would outperform the people if you have a good transfer of the equation. If you're just trying to adapt the algorithm, most of the case, it does not work. You need a lot of coordination for a long time. You need your business people to get involved in AI application.
Good question over there.
So, so this whole idea of having a company that's based on AI and deep learning, it's kind of interesting because in some ways the way I see it is that a lot of these companies, they're actually capitalizing on a lot of research that has been published in academia and it's open source. Many of them also the whole deep learning community is like sharing a lot of code publications, so everyone has the same knowledge. Now, one thing I'm interested in is how do you see your companies evolving? What is your differentiator in terms of technology? Is it just data? Is it you have a platform? Like what is it actually? What is an advantage of having, what would be your advantage having your company that's based on AI?
Yeah. So I think the key thing here is that, in fact, the technology differentiation is actually much bigger than most people actually thought. Well, otherwise, we would not actually have 200 algorithm writers in our companies. We'll just let them go home, or otherwise we're actually paying them very high wages. So in fact, even today with all the open sources platforms, open sources softwares, the technology differentiator within each use cases is still a big thing. So for example, let me just raise the example of medical imaging. In fact, most of the, for example, computer vision, open source use cases is actually directed towards, for example, low resolution. And when you talk about detection, the object to be detected is actually coming up, like, for example, 30 or 40% of the image itself. But then the actual use cases that we are trying to solve every single day within the medical imaging, for example, is actually like, for example, CT scan is 500 times 512 times 512 times 400. And then the lesions that we are trying to find, sometimes it's actually like 5 times 5 times like 3. So it's actually kind of like reading a very long article, and within like a few minutes, you have to find the mistake within that article. So in fact, most of the open source platform is actually not built to solve specific problems. And furthermore, for example, complicating the problem is like open source methods, open source algorithm would not actually know the difference between one, for example, one lesion that is safe and one lesion that is actually very dangerous. And although the frequency of that lesion might be very low, but then like the importance, the clinical importance of that lesion is high. So when you actually do a normal training, you actually get crowded out because the frequency is very low. So these are just some of the examples in which we face every day when we try to develop a research-grade algorithm into a kind of like an industry grade in which we can actually deploy it safely and robustly and stably across different scenarios, which is actually a real challenge when you talk about medicine. And in fact, it's also an important field in which we are actually dealing with human life and human health. And that's why any single mistake is going to be very costly. So I think these are the reasons why we have the top of the grade researchers in our team to be able to kind of iterate and kind of like optimize on the use cases itself. So, and that's why I think that in the future, exactly, I agree, why in the future, technology will no longer be kind of a general technology itself, but it will be developed according to the use cases. And I think that's actually where the value of the technology will come from mostly. Yeah.
Thank you for your question. We have a question in the front row.
Hi, so I wanted to ask about smart cities because you mentioned health and autonomous cars, but it seems to me that the Chinese government has made smart cities a priority, that China is very far advanced in that area. So I'd like to talk about that. And then as part of that question, earlier today there was a session here about smart cities, and it was there was a lot of discussion about the recent G20 meeting where the World Economic Forum is going to be working with the G20 on how to create a global platform for cities. And one of the big questions that cities are grappling with is how to get the right balance between using AI to become more efficient and privacy concerns. And you know, privacy concerns are something that's being discussed a lot outside of China. Is this a topic here at all? So that's.
Who would like to jump
Okay,
in?
I can try to answer your question. Smart city is a huge area. It covers a lot of different applications, different business or industries. Like in China, in Ping An, we also have a company focusing on smart city business. It has over 20 different divisions, different areas. So like education, like medicine, like transportation, there are many things, security. So it's a big area. And we try to help the government divisions and the departments to improve their efficiency and their effectiveness. And there are many different ways, different technologies to be applied, AI technology. For example, in Ping An, we develop technologies for automatic claim assessment for the car accident, right? When there's a car accident, in the old days, you need to wait for the assessors coming on site, right, to do the assessment. Now we can use AI technology just by taking a few pictures. Automatically in our app, you can see what's damaged, how much you can get from the claim process, and in seconds. And then if you accept, it's done, right? You can just leave. This is very quickly. And we apply these technologies on our business starting from October 2017. It's actually the first and the only insurance company applying this technology in a large-scale production. And in smart city area, we use this same technology to help the government to improve the transportation. Because the traffic jam is often caused by a small accident, very small accident. And then you wait for the police to come on the site to decide who is responsible for the accident. And that takes 40 to 50 minutes, and it causes a huge traffic jam. And then now we apply this technology on these kind of scenarios, and then the user only need to, the driver only need to take a video and send to our server. Then they can leave. Automatically it will be processed in the server. So this will reduce the time from 40, 50 minutes to 4 to 5 minutes. So greatly reduce the time. So we are applying a lot of these kind of technologies to help improve the city management and running. So smart city is a huge area. I can give you lots of examples like this. We're helping all different, even for environment protections. And the second question is about data privacy. Right? Data privacy is a very important problem, important question. It's also sensitive. And but data, we think is like it's an asset. It's like money. You need to get because Ping An is a highly regulated company, so we are constantly regulated by the government department. Currently, they are still in our own site in our office. So we think only when you get agreement from the customers, between the customers and the company, then you can use the data for what they ask. For example, when they ask for a loan, right? They are applying for a loan, and then we said, if you're applying for a loan, I need to get this information, that information, where I can decide whether you are qualified. Then they provide that data, and then we can use that data for loan processing, then loan application. This kind of a scenario, we can use the data. Otherwise, you can't directly just get the data and just use it. That's not, it seems that you don't know that in China also there's a lot of regulations to limit the usage of data. It's not a free zone. You can just do whatever you want. There's a lot of, yeah.
I can add something on data privacy. I want to say, number one, data privacy is not a question that has a right and wrong answer. It's about each society answering according to their own values and ethics. So each society have to find their own suitable levels of comfort, of how much they want to compromise data privacy, perhaps for some other things, for healthcare, for example. Do you want to share your healthcare data with a company that's trying to find a solution to detect diseases earlier to save lives? Even considering if your data can be sensitized or desensitized, removing all your personal data. I think that's a question a lot of people need to rethink. It's not about you want to protect your personal data as 100%, I don't want to share it at all. But it's about, do you want to balance between perhaps my data can come to some good usage, and if my data is properly protected and the process is fair and transparent, can I accept sharing some of my data for other type of social goods? I think that's one issue people don't talk about. Another is, I think in terms of China's case, certainly there has been in practice a lot of breaches of personal data, and there is a very vibrant black market for personal data. Companies can sell and buy personal data. Those are all very, very, of course, illegal in China, and government and activists needs to do things to improve the situation. I think the people will also try to, will demand the government and regulators to give them more protection of their personal data. This is a social negotiation between the Chinese people and the Chinese government and regulators. And I hope this process can evolve, into a future where personal data can be better governed in China. We have seen in certain places where, personal data, in terms of using personal data to advance certain government objectives, China has really gone into a no man's land. no man's land in terms of facial recognition technology usage, and also collecting and evaluating individuals' social credibility. All those efforts, I think, are things that require attention of every people in China and outside of China, and hopefully we can try to do things to make that better.
Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I think we can all agree that this is a very dynamic issue, and thank you very much for sharing all of your insights. Thank you to all of the questions, and thank you to those watching on the live stream. So, have a good evening.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.